Just enjoying this moment. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hey, John. I mean that sincerely. Welcome to your community. And my name, for those of you who do not know me, is Mark. And tonight I'm in the role of co-chair of Conscious Capitalism. And hopefully you can all hear me. I can yell a little bit more, big loud maybe.
Yell a little louder.
Yeah, a bit harder in the back. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry guys. Age is such a wonderful thing. This is a not so much. Okay. Right, I have a couple of things to go through with you. I'll do the kind of logistics first because I want to get into something much more enjoyable. A request, cell phones off or vibrate or whatever you want to do, just much noise would be wonderful, thank you. I want to thank Hanson and Bridgett. They have been a terrific sponsor and host for the Conscious Capitalism chapter, and truly that's what we need, and you need, and I know I have a partner in crime over there from another chapter from Northern Virginia, right? Thank you. Would you just like to say hello? Because for any of you guys who are on the road, please come to our events, enjoy, and support other new chapters who are looking to spread up all over the place. Back to our sponsors, thank you Jonathan, thank you Hanson Bridgett. I want to thank all of the volunteers, all of the board members who made this possible. And thank you so much for, again, coming and being part of our community. And our intention is, you'll see later a slide that shows that we have a full event schedule throughout next summer. And that's panels, social and educational programs. So come speak to me, tell me what you're up to in this community. We need to hear from you and we want to repurpose your work and support you, okay? And again, thank you panelists for being here, and there'll be lots of adulations. Thank you later, so thank you. Tonight, what I wanted to speak about was the challenges. Something I love about this chapter is we take on great subjects. And one of the subjects that came up was this mindfulness in business. And we had a real tug of war on the board of the conversation being, but no, mindfulness looks a certain way, it feels a certain way. And we said no. The board took a phone, we said no, because we want to challenge norms. That's what conscious capitalism does. And as a conscious capitalist, that's what you do. And tonight we are challenging how we can have that topic benefiting the bottom line with a mindset of how we're doing that through mindful practices. And that's what I love about the panelists tonight. So jumping kind of straight into that, I'm literally just giving you context here. They'll all introduce themselves and give you their lineage of, the great things they do. But I want to start with Robbie. Robbie I love, he's a younger generation who's curious, and I want to capture that level of curiosity. And why we asked Robbie tonight is because he deals with a lot of tech companies, and they are constantly looking at how do we build mindful programs around benefits. Let's start looking at the people we hire and not just running off and creating programs that don't make sense. Robbie, thank you for sharing your insights with us tonight. And then we have Jonathan. So Jonathan is also a board member, but his role tonight is as a leader and working for a law firm. Come on. 4 or 5 years ago, did any of us think we would say law firm and mindfulness? Not so much.
Including me.
What a great guy to have as a leader speaking about how law firms, this particular law firm, is shifting and breaking that mold. And then we come to Mark. And Mark has a whole body sense of this work, where you work with organizations and you can share those best practices and help us see what we need to do to help change happen within our organization. Because we're not all, the leader with the power in this room tonight, but we all have the energy and the insights to make a difference. So, further ado, I believe we're now with the moderator,
Yes.
who is also a board member, great friend, Sundari, total expert building, helping organizations build conscious organizations, many, many years under a belt. Go get them. Go get the information we want to hear.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So what I'd like to do to start is actually have each of our panelists do a brief intro, and then I will also do a brief intro, and then we'll get right into the questions. Okay? So Robbie, would you kick us off? And they have fancy mics.
Microphone down
there we
here.
go, that they have to turn on and off.
Awesome. Nice to meet you. My name's Robbie Peters, and I kind of wear a couple of different hats. My day job, I like to call it, I work for a company called Sequoia Benefits, and we work with about 500 technology companies here in the Bay Area, usually ranging between about 50 and 2,000 employees. And my main role at the company is helping them understand, not only from kind of a health insurance perspective, how their programs line up with other tech companies, but also building into how are they setting up their health and well-being programs, what are some of the innovative technologies that we can bring forth to them to help their employees have a better experience. And really, I think what we're seeing in this market, especially in the industry I work in, is it's a very, very competitive industry as far as recruiting is concerned. So we try to bring forth a lot of data to help them attract and retain the top talent, and sell in different programs to the executives at the company. That's my day job. And my night job is that through that I work with a lot of the HR leaders from the Bay Area tech companies here, and I work in creating a lot of different off-site networking events for them as far as looking at different topics, whether it be around performance management, new leadership, manager training, things like that, and building a network around the communities we work with as well. Excited to be here tonight.
I'm Jonathan Storfer. I chair the corporate department here at Hanson Bridgett. So everybody at Hanson Bridgett, you're welcome. We try to create a space for a community of all sorts to come here and share learning, and so I'm really pleased that everybody's here tonight. It's an honor to serve on the panel as well. I'm a corporate lawyer, which seems like something completely different than something that would be mindful. I think I'm sort of a recovered corporate lawyer, I suppose. I've represented everything from startups to companies going public, to law firms and operations. Our firm has 170 lawyers in 5 different Northern California offices. We're focused locally, but we do work internationally because that's what your business does as well. And I guess the story behind some of the transformation in this firm, and we'll get into a little bit more, is that the firm always has had I'd say a charitable and philanthropic focus. It's always done pro bono work the way other law firms have done. It's always donated to charity like other law firms have done. I'd say the model in law generally has always been, sure, we'll do pro bono work, and sure, we'll donate to charity, but otherwise we'll just work you to death to make your life miserable. And I think we've tried to change that through our culture. We have one of the lowest attrition rates of human capital of any law firm I've been in the country. We've been awarded a number of awards for promoting women and minorities, for our charity work, and for our community involvement. My personal passion, when I'm not doing my day job representing companies and investors in companies, is actually to try to create some tools as a lawyer and how business can transform itself. And so I helped write a piece of legislation called benefit corporation legislation, which you may or may not have heard of. It's been around only for a few years, but it's the first new corporate form of its kind since the limited liability company. It's the first corporation of its kind to be a for-profit corporation that, in addition to creating shareholder value, also demands social and environmental performance. So I'm very pleased to be
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Lesser. I'm the CEO of SILI, which is Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. So it's SIYLI, and we call ourselves Seriously Silly. and actually I would say it's one of the, in a certain way it's one of the real important kind of branding reputation aspects for us, in that we want to bring a sense of the unexpected and lightheartedness into the world of work. And at the same time, we aspire to bring a real sense of depth. And in this case, the depth of consciousness, of mindfulness practice. I had to smile about this debate about consciousness and mindfulness. To me, we can talk about, like, are they really not pretty much the same thing? We were birthed inside of Google in 2007. there was a fellow named Meng who had the idea of creating this a mindfulness-based emotional intelligence program, and I was lucky enough to be one of the people who got brought in to help create the program. It became immensely popular, and right now we're bringing this Search Inside Yourself program into tech companies. Actually, we're just doing some work. We're starting to do some work in healthcare. We just got a really great gig with the United Nations in Africa. And we also do public programs all around the world, and we also train teachers. My qualifications for this were 10 years living at the Zen Center and an MBA degree.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, and my name is Sundari Williams, and for me, I run an organization called the Leaders Studio. And what I'm deeply committed to is us individually connecting in with our own sense of purpose and presence, and also our own sense of leadership, whatever our formal titles may be, and creating a level of consciousness and awareness to then bring that back out to the world. And so the work that we do is here, and also we do quite a bit of work in Australasia, and particularly in areas where there's a lot of change, potential crisis, and challenge. And so I get to see, I think, what pressure and change does, particularly to leaders, but really for us as humans, and how do we keep really focused, clear, and mindful amidst all of it, and still be who we're here to be. So for me, that's what I'm passionate about, and I'm honored tonight to be able to moderate the panel. And what I'd like to do to kick us off is I'd like to start with, we were very particular in the title, and our curiosity was really around how do we create conscious culture. And when we think about that, there's a lot to it, right? We're all here for different reasons, either for ourselves, our teams, our organizations. But when we think about conscious culture, right, what do we actually mean by that? And so what I'd like to do is start and just ask, just to kind of begin, when you think about conscious culture, what comes to mind? Who would like to start? We don't have to go in any particular order, but when you think about conscious culture.
It's a little like a game.
That's right. Press the button.
Well, it's interesting. I think, to me, conscious culture starts with conscious individuals. And I think often, I've noticed a lot of people think they can skip that step. Right? Conscious culture is much easier to talk about than conscious individuals. And conscious individuals is I think, amazingly difficult. I've had, before I had this role as CEO of Silly, I spent 10 years as an executive coach and doing a lot of leadership work with pretty high-level leaders at Google and Facebook and Twitter and other companies. And I felt like I was really good. I'm really good at telling other leaders what to do. And helping them transform and helping other leaders become more conscious. Now that I'm in the seat of being CEO of this company, it's incredibly humbling. It's incredibly humbling because it's so, I find that I'm constantly having to look at, do I lead from the head or do I lead from behind? Am I confident or am I humble? Am I flexible or am I decisive? And I notice no matter. So it's really interesting, I think, this whole sense of, to me, when we talk about consciousness and mindfulness, what we're really talking about is incredible freedom of one's emotional life and the ability to create an incredible ability to be trustworthy. So we'll talk more about, to me, the practice of, one way that I talk about the practice of mindfulness meditation is it's the practice of cultivating trust in yourself. And that I think people really tune in to how much do you trust yourself and how trustworthy are you as a leader. And I think, to me, it all starts with the individual. If you can train your leadership team to be more conscious, you will create a more conscious culture.
To me, it's about the golden rule. this comes down to the golden rule. Treat everybody around you and treat the environment in a way that you would like, to be an environment you'd like to live in, to be treated as a person in the way you'd like to be treated. But it's easier said than done, isn't it? Because we have a lot of pressures every day. Pressures to earn a living, pressures to take care of our family. The world is getting faster and faster. There's a lot of pressures to cut corners. And so it takes time, it takes time and a moment to think consciously, mindfully about how we can achieve treating the environment and people around us in a way that enhances the culture. And also in the end, it ends up enhancing oneself as well.
Yeah, I think the way that I look at it, I agree with a lot of this. I think, Mark, you're touching on, coming from leadership. I think it's very important, and a lot of the companies we're working with to really drive a lot of this culture change in leadership. I think thinking about, I have a bit of a narrow mind. When I talk, I'm talking mostly Bay Area tech of what I'm looking at, but I think that these companies really drive their employees to produce high quality work. They do a lot of hours, and I think that what we're looking for is ways to drive your personal life with your professional life, and I think companies that are doing it right are doing a good job of surveying their employees, really understanding what's important to them as individuals, and helping them really drive those programs that are, again, going to make it where you kind of blur the lines in some sense between personal and professional life. It's not really a 9-to-5 job anymore. I think it's about making an environment for each individual within the company to be comfortable with. And if you can do that, I think you're going to achieve a lot as a company. I think you have to do that because, especially in the tech industry, it's highly competitive. So if your employees aren't happy, and it's not the same as just building a product and success is going to come. There's a lot of companies out there doing that right now, and I think you've really got to keep people happy to keep them with you.
Great, thank you. And so part of what we were talking about as a board was, what do we mean when we say mindfulness? Because as many of us, probably all of us are aware, some of us might be long-term practitioners, and then some people might just have downloaded an app the other day, and it's actually all perfect, right? And we're all on our journeys, right, to become more awake, more conscious, and more mindful. And so part of the debate for us was, when we say mindfulness, what do we mean? Is it a particular practice? Is it a way of being? Is it a lineage that might be in a particular tradition? What do we mean by that? And so what I'd love to hear, and this might be all of you or just a couple, is when you think about mindfulness, and Mark, you started the conversation on the mindfulness and consciousness piece. What do we mean by it, and why? Two pieces. What do we mean by it, and why do you believe there's such an emergence at this point in our history, right, of mindfulness in our world? So who's going to take that one on? That's a big one, huh? Yeah? They're looking at you, Mark. We'll start with Mark.
Yeah, so I think it might be useful even to clarify in terms. We talk about mindfulness, and then we talk about mindfulness meditation. And I would say, that one of the things that we talk about in Silly is when we talk about mindfulness or mindfulness meditation, we say that there's a dedicated practice and integrated practice. So mindfulness meditation would be a form of a dedicated practice, a time when you actually take some time when you step outside of your day-to-day life and do a practice. It's some kind of, it might be sitting meditation, it might be walking meditation, it might be journal writing. These are forms of a dedicated mindfulness practice. Mindfulness meditation is a very particular kind of sitting without any sense of trying to attain anything. And then integrated practice is what I think of as mindfulness practice, is then how do you then take that attention training, that quality of attention into your daily life. And I would add to that I think that that mindfulness, as I see it, includes what I would say compassion. That there is some particular values and attitudes that are embedded within mindfulness. Compassion would be one. I would say warm-heartedness and curiosity are. So it's not a neutral practice. It's not one that can be think, separated out from, even though in our culture, it's being separated out from its roots, and I think that's fine. I think it's really a useful thing that we can secularize it. But to me, I think it's important that we not separate mindfulness from the desire to help, the desire to be of use to other people or to the planet. Yeah, stop there for now.
I would just say, getting back to the title of our presentation, which is benefiting the bottom line, for our law firm, we're a mid-sized law firm. We live and breathe in a very, very competitive environment. I'd say Northern California has one of the most, not the most, I'd say, competitive landscape in the law. So when you're a mid-sized firm, you might not be able to shower everybody with the kind of, at least initial benefits that cost a lot of money but maybe don't fulfill the soul. You have to figure out a way really to attract and retain the best and the brightest, because we have to live in a competitive environment where we have to practice excellent law, we have to provide excellent client service, and beat our competition. How do we do that? Some of the ways I think we do it that benefit the bottom line are creating programs and services for our employees at every level, which try to meet their human needs beyond just getting a paycheck. To create an environment like this where people want to come to work, they feel energized by working for Hanson Bridgett. They tell their friends about it. It leads to clients who are interested in values, not only the excellent law, but values-driven attorneys to come and be clients of the firm. So I think putting it all together to me is about how you become mindful, figure out the space you're in a way that then benefits the bottom line. That's the business reason for doing it, but there's another reason for doing it too, which is we're human beings. And we are lucky, I think, for the most part, of attracting people to join our firm who share those kinds of sensibilities and realize its importance as humans. But we also think that the legal profession has some responsibility as well. And so we've tried to do things. I'm going to tell you, we don't pay the top starting salaries that some of the largest firms in town do, but we always get the best recruits, because more and more people are beginning to realize, I didn't do this. When I got out of school, I thought I'll just go somewhere for 2 years and take my student loans off, and it doesn't matter how much I hated it. It wasn't worth it. I really hated it. It was a terrible 2 years. And so I think millennials are much smarter than I was. They really realize that they're going to a place to find a home. And your work family, because you probably spend more time with your work family than your real family sometimes. So what is this home we're trying to create? What is this space beyond just earning a paycheck? And I think if you think about those things, about how you want to represent the firm and yourself in the community, to me that's what mindfulness is about too, as well as taking care of the environment.
Yeah, I would just chime in there as far as, the changing workforce environment and, things not just being able to be dictated to people and then going down and producing. It just doesn't happen that way, I don't think, anymore. And I think the companies that are getting it right are the ones that are really surveying their population or, have a strong HR team. And HR, and I think a way that a lot of times you say that word and people kind of, ooh, that's, somebody that's going to give me rules and somebody that's going to go out there and tell me how I have to do things. But I think the way that, we're looking at a lot of these companies that are building in mindfulness is that they're bringing HR to be a real kind of strategic partner for the organization about really getting the culture behind and really defining that. And I think the only way you can do that is by understanding your population. I think all of these companies that we're working with have very, very diverse populations right now, and not one thing is going to be right for everybody. So I think a lot of the companies that do a good job of offering multiple kind of areas for people to participate, whether it's clubs or whether it's different things that come about. So we look a lot of it's not just about helping them get their job done, but it's also about them feeling comfortable that if they're going to have a lot of hours here, we're going to take care of them not only from a financial perspective, but bringing in teachings to help them there, bringing in help on the law side or whatever it might be, knowing that your company is going to be offering those things for you and really kind of figuring out what those individuals want. I think it's going to be different for each company, but we're listening to them and building it so they feel like they have a whole kind of world around them they can choose from is important.
Great, thank you. And what I'd like to do is follow on that. And one of the questions we had put in the description was, how is it specifically that there may be benefits or other things that organizations can offer that really move the needle on conscious culture? So I think, we've begun talking about different programs, different things, but from your experience particularly, but you guys can also, add in, is what would be some of the things you think maybe are moving the needle a little more than others? So it might be, yes, we can have, X program, and that brings some returns, but we're actually seeing the returns in terms of creating that conscious culture or a better culture from this type of benefit.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
Yeah, no, I think, so what our firm does a pretty good job of is we run a pretty extensive, about 50-page survey every year. We break it up into multiple different segments, so you don't have to answer it all at one time, but every year we try to compile that and really understand the different trends that are going on in the tech space. And I think, before it may have been, especially in my profession, having the proper, medical benefits in place, so they felt that from a health perspective they were getting taken care of. But, that is now just becoming one piece of the overall organization. It's really building around, more than that. So what does their financial wellness look like? What does their personal wellness look like? Their occupational wellness look like? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can really define that. And I think that, what people are coming to us, and the companies that are doing a good job of that are the ones that are really setting up and understanding what's important to their company, and then setting up a calendar or bringing in these things that are going to help them in their personal life more. And I think really just morphing those personalities, because every company right now has a ping pong table or a keg, if you're talking about a tech company, right? That used to be like, that's what we have. Yeah, not every company here, right? But I think if you see a lot of the companies that we're working with specifically, that used to be how they would recruit individuals. They'd say, hey, look, we've got this here. Come to us. You're going to have a great time. Well, the fact is that actually most of the people, when you go into these companies, aren't sitting on the ping pong table. Maybe sometimes at 10 o'clock when the engineers are still in there and they need a little bit of a break. But I think it's really more of what can we bring to these companies and these individuals so that they can kind of morph the personal and professional life a little bit, right? So it's bringing on resources for them on a financial perspective. It's to help them understand the equity they're getting and how to utilize that, right? A lot of them are getting offered these things but have no idea how to use it. So I think companies that are doing a good job are bringing in financial consultants or different programs to help people understand how to do those things, and are really, I think, driving in on the education piece and helping employees with their personal life too, a lot of them, I think.
I'd like to add some specific examples along those lines that what you just said. Can anybody hear me that way?
No, your mic level's
Yeah,
too
I'm not
low.
sure your mic is on.
Is it on?
Wait a minute, let me hear. I've got a spare mic.
Yeah.
Hold on. It's not.
It's very usual for people to say they can't hear me. I'll tell you. So, but this is fine. I have a long list of things that we do here at the firm, and some of them actually, in doing some research about for this panel, there are things I hadn't even heard of, and I've worked here a long time because we offer so much, but along the lines of really not just your work life, but really trying to enhance your entire life, looking at the person as a whole package. So we have an employee assistance program, right, that you can call free of charge. You can talk about personal problems, drug and alcohol-related problems anonymously, things that are going on in your personal life. We have a wellness committee. These are things, by the way, that don't cost money. They don't cost money. You can build conscious culture without necessarily having to spend a lot of money. It's really about trying to be creative and to try to match the kinds of issues you have in your workforce with opportunities. So we have an internal wellness committee that works, volunteers who come up with ideas about how to enhance the culture around here through wellness, for instance. And one good thing about that is it's often driven by staff and lawyers, so they get a chance to work together, not just in law, but actually in building human culture here. And just by having a wellness committee, for instance, I think we build morale. And it sends a signal, I think, to actually young lawyers that this is a place you would want to come and work. We have a whole bunch of different programs, panels on how to quit smoking. We have yoga, we have meditation, which I think is pretty unusual for a law firm. We have opportunities to learn how to cook and to shop better, healthier for yourself. We have a Hanson Bridgett cookbook. How did that happen? Well, we had a contest, and everybody sent in their favorite healthy recipe and took a picture of it, and it didn't cost any money to do that, and it created some esprit de corps. So there's ways to do things that don't cost a lot of money, but really build up, I think, the culture, and also send a message about who are the kind of people we want to be in this firm. Are we like every other firm? No, we're not like every other firm. We're Hanson Bridgett, and we want to be different. There's just a whole long list of things, and then we have a whole calendar of events that people can participate in, everything from volunteering at Glide to help serve lunches, or at Everett Middle School to tutor students, and we give credit actually to our associates. We're working on getting the partners credit, but the associates get actually billable hour credit for going and doing some of these volunteer works. We have opportunities to donate prescription glasses, or Dress for Success days, so that people can bring in their good clothing that they're not going to use anymore, which then goes to homeless shelters for people so they can dress right for the next interview. So and that doesn't cost us anything. None of this costs us anything. That's the great thing you should really need to understand. There are things we do that cost money. We have great employee benefits, we have a 401k, we have the usual sundry things, but I would say building a conscious culture is beyond just the typical employee benefits. It's really coming up with programs, as you said, tailored to your individual workforce, and we found just really a great way to build morale and culture.
Great, thank you.
Sure, here, Mike.
I wanted to add one piece to that, because I think, Jonathan, you mentioned all different, you've got partners in the program, you've got people at all different levels within the organization, and I think one thing that I've noticed companies doing a really good job of are the ones that can, they set up some type of a wellness committee, somebody that really says, okay, we're going to define what means what to our company and make sure that all different voices within our company are really heard. But B, I think companies that do a really good job are the ones that not only utilize that committee, but also have executive buy-in on that committee, and then also have executives and top leaders within the organization coming to the events or doing these different things, right? Because it starts to build a culture where, it makes people feel a lot more comfortable with the individuals they're working with, and I think, if you can have that executive buy-in, it becomes really, really important in not only driving the success, but also, making it to be a point where I think in these days, the more transparent the culture you can have, or the more kind of involved the executives are with the, just the managers and down to the individual contributors, and they can see this as a place, it's in work, but it's outside of work, and I think that really does help build that culture in a lot of ways.
Just to add to that, it's really important to lead from the top, but to give people permission at all levels to participate and not be afraid of the answers you might hear. For instance, we just had our associates build a compensation committee and do a study based on it because they wanted some changes, and we're working on that. We're working on the kind of benefits and things to remain competitive, and by allowing them to participate and be empowered, I think that goes a long way, I think, to showing the kind of place we want to be and showing that we value them, and we hope that they will stay and be partner here.
So what I've noticed, and I've noticed it at Silly and in a lot of the consulting work that I've done, if you want to change cultures, start by how companies have meetings. And so one of the things that we do is we start almost all of our meetings with some short bit of silence, and usually some kind of personal check-in. So we make sure that it's interesting, I feel like by taking the time to do a little bit of the heart work and a little bit of just getting people talking to each other, or a little bit of a check-in, that in the end it actually makes meetings much, much more effective. So meetings would be to me that would be the most, where you can get the most impact for bringing a little bit of consciousness, as well as even meeting culture, making sure that you're having the right people at the meetings, being clear, what kind of meeting is this? Is this a brainstorming meeting, or is it a decision-making meeting? And then the follow-up on meetings, having clear action steps and actually following up. And then there's things like hiring, firing, and how you deal with performance reviews and failure. These to me are this is the hard stuff of people working together, where where one can't fake emotional intelligence. People will see it in your body. How do you deal when things don't go well? And invariably things won't go well at times in the world of work. So again, I think to me this is a lot of these things are aspirational, but it's having a clear sense of how do you want to have your hiring process? How do you really want to have meetings? And what kind of conversations do you want to have when there are difficult situations? How do you deal with conflict? Can you have an organization where there can be healthy conflict?
This is so true. When I got appointed as the chair of our corporate department, the firm allowed me to do some work with leadership consultants, and they suggested that I take, there's a number of tests you take a DISC test, an emotional intelligence test. I took them and I learned a lot, and then I asked for comments back from clients and staff and my partners, and I would say, I don't know how many companies allow to do that, but it was so valuable for me to learn about me, to learn how I can be a more effective leader, how I can communicate better. One of the things that the test came back on and said, I need to really be aware of the emotional ripples I cause. So I had to think about that, and it made such a profound difference in how I talk to others and what I have had to think first, because what I'm saying and what I think I'm saying may not be what other people are hearing, because they may speak a different language than I do, literally or metaphorically. And so I think communication in terms of building conscious culture is so important, the kinds of things you talk about. I have a question for you. Can I ask a question? I'm dying to know in a big group in a big group meeting, how you can do a check-in with people to set the tone when you've got a big room, a bunch of people, and you've got an hour. How do you do that? I'd love to know that, because I'll use it.
We're going to do it here.
Awesome.
That's in a few, you want to do it in a few minutes?
Well, when we're ready for the transition, as we're ready to go from this part, we'll do a real learning.
Yes, we had this designed in for you, not for everyone.
No,
We'll just make them feel a little special. Okay, great. And I love what you shared, because also in my experience, what I've seen is it's those places where we're under pressure and where we have to handle change and ambiguity, that often we show those places where we come undone. Does everybody know what I mean? We're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. Or did that person really just look at me that way? And I think those are opportunities for practice as well, right?
And to learn to forgive.
Yeah.
To learn that we're all humans, and guess what? We make mistakes, and we can learn and correct them if we talk to each other.
That's it. And so I almost would hold that if we choose, everything can actually be a practice. How do we show up when we're in traffic? How do we show up when we walk in the door at home? How do we show up to ourselves? And how do we make that a practice of coming back and being clear and being conscious and being mindful, right? So I think we're talking specifically in organizations, which make it more complex, right? Lots of people, lots of deadlines, lots of financial considerations. It's complex. And yet, what a great place to practice, right? So, and my teachers have always said half of the practice is on the cushion, the other half is in the world, right? So, and I see people that I can tell, people going, right? And I would suggest that's probably the harder practice, right, in the world. But I think it's both. So, what I'm curious about then to follow is and there are, again, two pieces. There are, what types of benefits do you see to organizations and to individuals? So we're talking about this, we're assuming this is all good stuff, right? We're all here supporting this. And what I'm curious about, this is my training as an economist, which is my first training, is to say, so if we want to bring this stuff into organizations, or we want to, say, hey, even in our team that we work in, or in our life, like what are some of the benefits and the tangible benefits that you might see? So I know, Mark, you may have some specific case studies or examples. Jonathan, you might have some anecdotal, and then I think, Robbie, you might also have some different data or reports or however you can share for us. Okay? So what are the benefits? Because is that something you guys would be interested in? Yeah? And some maybe numbers or resources. Is that of interest? Show of hands. You guys all too relaxed out there? Okay, good. All right, over to you guys. So Mark, you want to start, Jonathan?
I don't care.
Yeah, you can start.
Well, for us, for instance, our insurance company is interested about the wellness of each and every one of our employees. And because we're not a workforce of hundreds of thousands, and we say we also would be interested, but the risk pool is smaller. The fact is, health insurance is more expensive sort of per person, I think, for a smaller group than an enormous group. And so we actually, it's actually going to benefit our bottom line in due course. We can show that the individuals, for instance, are healthier. We have a healthier population. Not only does it help our cost for insurance, but they miss less work days, right? And so that redounds to the bottom line. We also have a bunch of happier people who are empowered. So not just on wellness, I don't think we should just think about it as sort of having a wellness committee and doing smoking cessation, but I think also we live in a highly competitive environment to recruit and retain good human resources. And so people want to know what beyond just their paycheck and the usual customary monetary benefits or the ping pong table is there. Do you promote diversity? What is your policy for parenting? Is there opportunity to telecommute? I mean, the world is demanding more flexibility in many different ways, and yet you have to, but we also have to do it, and we've made this clear to our workforce, we have to do it in a way that is profitable. And we also, I think, have to teach our workforce what it means to be profitable. People don't know, and so we spend a lot of time actually teaching our young associates, and frankly, many of our partners don't understand it, how we make profit, and the cost of doing business in a place like Northern California, which is very expensive. So I think it's an education process, and I think that there are multiple ways to do this. There's some other things that we've done that are outward facing. So for instance, you talk about mindfulness inside. We actually try to be mindful in terms of how we encourage our clients. So we created one of the first sustainable business practice groups among law firms in the country. We're a certified B Corp, which is a certification of sort of, I'll call it the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval for businesses. We were the first law firm to do so. And I'll tell you, frankly, let's just say some of my more cynical partners might have said at one point, why are we doing that? Why would we care about doing that? We're here to, make sure we get to philanthropy, but why are we doing these new kinds of things? And ultimately the term is because we want to lead. And because we could see in our clients that they were interested in the idea of, social and environmental performance and a values-driven law firm. And it's taken a bit of time to prove that model out, but there's no question we've made money on it. We've attracted a lot of clients who are interested in a different kind of paradigm, who demand excellent legal services, but want you to understand their business, which is based in values as much as it is in profit.
Just a short story. This was I was teaching a 2-day Search Inside Yourself training at Google, and this was early on day 2, and this young woman engineer just kind of burst out in tears, and she was brave enough to talk about what was happening, and what she described was that it took a day or a little more than a day of just slowing down and stopping outside of her usual Google engineering work to recognize how far she had come from her own life. She recognized that she had just been so driven and fulfilling what her parents or what society wanted her to do, and just had completely lost herself. And that this was a real aha that she had. And then later, she reported how much more productive, engaged. It just totally changed her productivity and her leadership ability. And this is what we're. I mean, this is the. I think. I think that we still have this model of an assembly line model of businesses. If you look at org charts and the way the way people tend to relate to each other in cubicles, we still haven't quite gotten the importance of humanizing and the relationship between heartfeltness and the bottom line is becoming more and more evident. Google just did a study. They haven't as yet released, it's not as yet public, I just saw it the other day. They studied some of the benefits of doing this Search Inside Yourself program, and it tremendous decrease in stress and increase in engagement and well-being. So I think there's still, I think, a lot of work to do in these studies. If you haven't looked up the science, one of the benefits, we talk about the benefits of individuals, enormous benefits from having a regular mindfulness meditation practice. There's some great study about, even at the level of the DNA and chromosomes, the apparent lengthening of what's called the telomeres, which are the caps of chromosomes, which seem to be directly related to overall length of life and well-being. So there's from the individual level to the team level to the larger level, many benefits are becoming more apparent of mindfulness and mindfulness meditation.
Mark, can I just, will that be public at some point?
It will be. It's coming out. In fact, I was supposed to, I think by the end of this week or next week, Google's releasing this to the public.
Wonderful, great. That'd be good. And we can see, just in terms of follow-up, where we could maybe, we could put it into a blog or whatever you might allow us, and send it out to folks. Would that be of interest?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we'll hook you up. Okay, great. Robin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think from my side, something I thought that just might be interesting to share what a lot of these companies, a lot of it comes to, well, how do you drive the ROI out of the mindfulness program that you put in, and how are you really understanding what is important to your company, and when these things happen, are they really moving the needle internally, right? You can obviously look around and you can try to see if you're gauging if people are happy, but there's a couple of technologies I wanted to talk about out there that I think really speak to the company about really driving ROI. So one is a company called Culture Amp. I don't know if anyone in here is familiar with Culture Amp. Anybody? Culture Amp, yes, Culture AMP. So this is a great, a lot of the technology companies are using this right now as a survey tool for their companies, and it's not only a tool to go and gauge answers to questions, but it really charts kind of responses over time and how you're actually moving the needle from an ROI perspective. So if you're bringing this back to your company and you want to bring this into play, first off, it's like, how can I understand what my company actually wants, and then how can I draw over time the data behind this to maybe sell this back to the executives or whoever you're showing this to, the board, of why these things are actually making sense, because a lot of times it is hard to drive an actual ROI behind some of these mindfulness initiatives. So that's one I think that's a really interesting technology to take a look at. Another one is a company called Reflective. I don't know if anybody is familiar. Anyone familiar with Reflective? Got two hands for Culture Amp. But, all right, well, I'll be the first one talking about Reflective. So Reflective is a pretty neat performance management tool, and I think what they do a really good job of is they do a good job of instilling kind of cultural values back into the company. So if you think about traditional performance management, a lot of it is 6 months go by and you've got 6 or 7 questions, or you've got a long thing you've got to fill out about what you did for the company, and your manager has to do a lot of that same thing. Well, this company called Reflective, which again a lot of tech companies are using it, Pinterest uses it, Instacart uses it, companies like that are using this tool. What it does is it actually builds into your everyday workflow, and it's actually built into your email. So a lot of people don't want different technologies they have to sign into constantly. But this is one that builds into your everyday workflow. Your manager kind of sets, what are the things that you're trying to drive as far as initiatives within the company are concerned, and it's kind of put out in a way where if you're doing this and you're emailing with somebody, every time you're emailing with them, they can hit what's called like a hashtag for this, where they're able to say, this was all around, bringing mindfulness, or this was about whatever initiative you're trying to do, and then it drives it all back into, this is like what's going on daily, and then you can drive that back into your overall performance management, so you don't have to look back at everything and be like, I don't remember what happened 6 months ago. So I think that's really interesting. And then that's also starting to publish into companies to really drive culture. So especially if there's big initiatives going on, you see a lot of interaction. Even some of these companies are building in peer bonuses, and it may not be money. It might be things like meals that are given. So someone has a meal a week that they can give out to somebody if they do something extraordinary through this tool, and then they're able to recognize that. That draws up to the Friday meetup of the company, and they can really kind of recognize those people. So I think those are two tools. If I had anything anecdotal to share on how you drive ROI and really measure it, I think that you'll see a lot more of them. And I think that they're both very, very easy to implement. I mean, you can implement both of these within probably less than 10 days, and some of them even less than that. And I think they do drive a lot of data as far as helping people understand how these initiatives are actually working with their companies.
Great, thank you. And I think what I've seen also is that in the engagement work we do and also the culture change work is to really look at whatever type of a pre and a post test of sorts, and figuring out the metrics that are important for your organization. So setting up those metrics, a set of questions, a way to be able to do that, pre-test, if you will, and then also a post-test, and then follow on. And you'd be surprised, I think often we might think, well, how do we quantify this? And ultimately, it is up to us to get creative with that. If it's productivity, if it's time, how do we link it up with dollars if that's needed? But to not be fearful to do that, because whether we like it or not, right? We're in many, most of us, all of us probably are in organizations where we do need to have some of that quantification. So I think a nice combination of qualitative data, so the stories, the different pieces that you shared and what that's bringing to people, and then also making sure we've got the quantitative as well. So that's just, and I see that a lot in employee engagement, right? We have our standard, surveys that are done, but those only take us so far. So I'm always curious, like, what else actually needs to be looked at, and particularly around some of this conscious culture work that we're talking about. So that's what I would add, just from my experience. And that's the economist, but also the mindfulness practitioner, both of me speaking. Okay, so last question then, actually maybe the second to last question, is what do you think are the biggest challenges in introducing some of these things that you're talking about? So if you were to give advice, perhaps, or suggestions to people in the audience of like, I want to introduce this, or I want to bring this in, this is some good stuff, right? But there might be some challenges, or there might be some advice that you could give us, okay? So, Mark, do you have, yeah.
I think one of the biggest challenges has to do with perception and the gap between perception and reality. A high-level engineer from SAP came to one of our programs and decided he wanted to bring mindfulness into SAP, which is a 70,000 person, very conservative, German-based company. And he went and started talking to a variety of leaders throughout the company. And the first leader he went to said, well, I love this work. I'm completely into this mindfulness and I'm really wanting to bring it in, but the company's not ready. The next leader, same thing. The next leader, the same thing. The next leader. So each individual, the world has really changed. These days, like yoga has become part of society. I think, and mindfulness practice more and more. Even though it still might not be so much in mainstream work, people are ready for it. And now at SAP, I think this year there's been probably 1,500 people that have gone through the Search Inside Yourself mindfulness program. So in a way, maybe the lessons there are, one, find internal champions, find people who are really passionate about this kind of work, and you'll see it won't be hard to find such people I think in almost any organization, especially here in Northern California. That might not be true everywhere, but I'm surprised that we're now doing this work like all over the country and all over the world, whether it's Nashville, Tennessee, or Singapore. And don't be put off. Don't notice and help people see the gaps between perception and reality. And I think too, it's becoming comfortable enough with this work to make it very simple and plain. It's not, it's not It's not about religion. It's not also about necessarily even trying to change people. It's more starting with very, very kind of simple practices. I would say it's very important to find a champion. It's so important for the leader of the organization to give permission to others to do this, because there's lots of great ideas about how to do it throughout the workforce. I don't think but impossible having somebody at the top, say it's okay, and moreover that it's integral to appropriate and important business performance, I think is important. If that's not possible, then you have to find your champions where you can until you can prove up the model, right? What I found internally is that there are naturally people here, for instance, that were taken to it, but there are also people, frankly, that had their doubts about particular things that they viewed as not central to our business. Yoga, meditation, starting a sustainable business practice group, these kinds of things. Is that what lawyers do that? But and it still goes on from time to time. I think so. Patience is important, and your ability to be an ambassador for the idea and teach people, and to show people how better collaboration and creating a conscious culture actually, in the end, benefits the bottom line by showing success stories. But it does you have to have patience for that, and we've been able to show it here. But I would say, it's in certain circumstances it's taken time. So that would be my advice. And take a chance.
I would say, one other thing to just kind of add on top of that is, I think a lot of these initiatives need some type of executive buy-in or board approval before they happen, and a lot of times you have to utilize what I would see as data out there. So I've got two kind of good examples of some things I've seen really moving as far as trends are concerned in the tech world. So one is, we run an annual survey year over year. So one was about 2 years ago, I think, about 10% of companies that responded had a PTO policy that was, open time off. There was no real kind of set structure towards that, and a lot of companies kind of originally came out and started to do that. Now there's still a lot of debate if that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do out there, and I'm not advocating either way for one, but I have watched how a lot of this has changed just through these surveys. And kind of through the talk, it's actually been able to go where, which companies are doing these things? And if you can bring that to executives and say, these are the types of companies that are doing this, I think that's really moved the needle. And now it's become where it went from about 10% of companies back in 2013 to almost 50% of companies now have these policies in the tech world as far as an open-ended PTO policy. And I think a lot of that happened through, again, companies talking about it and bringing the real examples. If you shine up there on the board, your top 8 competitors and 4 of them are doing this type of thing, I think that's the type of stuff that really moves the needle. And I think another policy that I am a big advocate for is the change that's happening within maternity and paternity policies within technology companies right now as well. And I think a lot of that has been driven as well by a couple market leaders, and then people bringing this, and then now it's become to a point where, again, something 2 years ago was really just a lot of it through the insurance business was, people would have their short-term disability, and that would be about it. And hopefully your company had that policy in place. Otherwise, you were going through California short-term disability, which is very limited. And now I think you see almost, about 50 to 60% of companies are offering as much as 6 weeks or over of full-time pay on top of that short-term disability. And again, I think a lot of that has been driven through data and just, obviously you have those initial market leaders, and if you can bring out those examples and then you can start to drive data and poll other companies that are like you, I think that's a way to really move the needle for some of these things, some tangible examples.
I also just want to add one more thing. There's nothing like having a client or a customer ask you to do something to encourage your company to do it. So I think this started with government in RFPs, for instance, asking for your diversity policies and encouraging the diversity among the workforce. But I think it's now we're finding that that kind of idea and the idea of sustainability and treating the environment and your workforce better, broadly speaking, in the way that we're talking about, is also spreading to big companies who are asking their suppliers and vendors, like law firms, what practices are you putting in place with who you hire and how you retain? How do you promote women and people of color? how do you treat the environment? What are your policies with regard to how you use resources? And guess what? We hire people too. We have vendors, and we do it too. So we ask our suppliers to fill out a survey asking about how they use their resources and what are their hiring policies, because we realize we have an ability to be an influencer too. We have clients, but we're also a client.
Great, thank you. And the piece too I would add is, first is to be it, right? There's something when you show up and you're embodying a different way of being that does change the dynamic in a meeting or in an organization. So I think also when we're doing whatever practices we have to keep ourselves well, centered, mindful, whatever practices you may have, it shows. You don't hide it, right? It shows. And I have seen people walk into, I have a client where he said, this one meeting is really difficult, and every time, it's just difficult and stressful. And one of the things he's been working with is really working with his breathing, his staying centered, being mindful, showing up. And he said, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't think this is going to work. I said, just try it, check it out. And he literally said it was like night and day in the meeting, where there was a way where he felt more calm, he was able to be more present, and he said, literally, I could see people around the table relax. And this made me a bit sad, is he said, I haven't seen many people relax around me ever. And I thought, there it is, right? That's creating conscious culture, right? And it touched my heart because he's a pretty tough cookie, as we say. And he did it, right? And so it begins with us. And then I think the second piece is create pilots, right? I think kind of what each of you were saying, it's like creating pilots where you get a small group of people and you begin to see results and create, some of these successes that you can share with others. So I think it's be it, pilot it, right? Embody it, challenge it, right? All the different things you guys are saying, which is really, really wonderful. So what I would like to do is, do any of you have maybe a closing remark, and then I'd like to open it up for questions just for a few minutes, and then we're going to break up into groups. Any closing remarks?
I think I've touched on a lot of what I wanted to put forward, but really about, I think, understanding the population. I think a changing workforce where, it's really, really important to not just be about the productivity of the work. I mean, that's ultimately the goal, obviously, but to actually really make people feel appreciated in their personal lives these days, because there's a lot of opportunity out there for people and they can go work somewhere. It's really about making sure that they feel that your company actually cares about them personally. I think the companies that are doing a good job of that are also the companies that are being highly successful out there. So.
I guess I just want to thank everybody for coming, because in a way we live in a little bit of a bubble here in the Bay Area, and the fact that you've come shows you're interested in this area. I'm always sometimes surprised, but not, when I'm out in the legal community and other, not always in San Francisco, but sometimes, but particularly in other areas of the country, the reactions to some of these ideas. I'm putting on a panel, actually, an international group of lawyers that's meeting in Charlotte in October about this kind of idea. And the people on the planning committee at first, what? They don't even know what I'm talking about, but we're going to have it, and we'll see if they boot me off the stage.
Yeah, you go.
It'll be fun.
I'd really like to open it up for questions, really interested in what you're all thinking.
Let me just get the mic. We are videoing, so just get the mic.
I didn't know they were videoing.
I know. We didn't tell you.
We forgot to ask you to sign the release. I'm going to have my lawyers prepare something for
In
you.
the house. Okay, here we go.
Helen, thank you for all your sharing. Thank you for the moderating. I'm going to try and be conscious of my breathing, because I feel a little nervous asking this question. But if I can't ask this in the Bay Area at a conscious capitalism meeting, I don't know where else I can ask it.
Retreat now.
And it's about this aspect of consciousness that is a field of consciousness. as we're starting to look at quantum mechanics and epigenetics and going deeper into ourselves, we are realizing there's something beyond ourselves. There is some transrational, transcendent intelligence. I'm interested in Mark's experience in the Zen monastery about this. And have any of you experienced, this is one of my aspirations, is to bring this level of consciousness into the workplace. If all of us can work, and all our employees can work, connected individually to this, dare I say, transcendent consciousness, and mindfulness, I think, is a way of connecting with that. I'm excited for what kind of cultures, what kind of work cultures we could create. So yeah, I'd like to ask about your experiences with connecting to a field of consciousness that is beyond our rational understanding.
Well, what's coming up for me might not be so satisfying for you, but I'm thinking of this a quote, one of my favorite quotes by the Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, where he says that the real miracle is not to walk on water. The real miracle is to walk right here on Earth. So it's interesting that I think that, to me, the connection between what you might be pointing to as sort of transpersonal or non-rational, connected to the like what's right here, right in front of us, right? What's right here, and the miracle of being alive, the miracle of being alive, the miracle of breathing, of having, and not to forget that miracle. And I've noticed that you put a group of people together who have that, just that kind of, who are that alive, that appreciative of whatever's happening right now. Magical things happen in that kind of atmosphere.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be answering your question, but so I just want to tell you what's coming up for me when I hear the question. The fact that we're all in this room together, for me, working as a lawyer, at least in this firm, and the fact that we can have an event like this, and I can personally connect with all of you and have learning and sharing back, enriches my own personal life and makes me feel more connected to the community at large at a different kind of level than just being a professional, at a different kind of level, actually, even in my personal life, that we're in a connected community, as Margaret likes to say over and over again. And for me personally, it's just, it enriches my life, and I hope it enriches everybody else's that comes to things like this. So that's how I would answer. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Next question. I saw you first.
I'm not sure that technology is a reinforcement to mindfulness or an impediment. I certainly know that when I'm looking at Facebook, I'm not quite as present as when I'm not. And you were talking, Rob, you talked about technology as a survey and data and so forth, and that's kind of like seems to contradict the idea that you could sit there and be united with your spirit and yourself and be conscious when you interact with the next human. I mean, there's some firms that we've talked to about turning off the network for 10 minutes every couple hours. Make sure everybody gets up and walks around and does something else when they come back to Earth. What is you all's observations about whether technology is a reinforcement or an impediment to mindfulness?
Yeah, I guess I think I would agree with part of that. I think that the reason I brought up technology in this case is because I look at a lot of these companies, and I think we're talking about how do you move the needle for some of these to actually kind of recognize some of these programs coming in. So I was more bringing it up as a way to, look at what are the types of things that companies are looking for from a mindfulness perspective. I mean, that could be something that you're asking about, and this is a way to bring forth data. I think what I notice a lot about with these companies is once you get over 50 to 100 people, it's really hard to bring an honest collective opinion when you just put that question out there. And I don't think that there's enough, at least leaders within these organizations, to individually go around and kind of ask these questions and do it outside of technology. So I think it can help, but I obviously agree. I think that in some of it is building programs that are going to definitely come off of technology as well, and I think that's important. So that's how I would do it.
Yeah, to me, technology is a little bit like fire, right? It can be tremendously harmful, but it can be tremendously helpful. I think so far in our culture, it's mostly, I think, in this realm, tremendously harmful, right? That as we all know, the level of distraction. I just read a book called The End of Absence, and how that there's describing people who lived pre-internet can remember when we weren't always connected, and how people born post-internet won't even have that experience. At the same time, I'm noticing technology is being used being used to help train children to be aware of their breath. iPads that have different kinds of games and ways to help train people to focus. And I think we'll be seeing more and more beneficial uses of technology, I hope.
Yeah, I would say from a health and wellness perspective that's a great point. As far as a lot of these technologies, I think that are being built by companies like Fitbit or Apple or whatever it might be, I think are actually building, helping you really understand how you're feeling. Are you having these things health-wise? I think data that you were talking about, Jonathan, about driving into people's health patterns and how they're able to look at that and make recommendations. I think there's some helpfulness in the technology there for sure.
And I was laughing because I'm here with my Fitbit, and I'm going, I wonder what my heart rate is, and I'm watching, and I think that's beautiful to be able to be aware of when we get worked up, when we can settle ourselves down, and I also check it sometimes when I'm in traffic. Where am I? Am I getting worked up? And so, yeah. So this is Fiona, my Fitbit. So this is my new friend. Okay, so just real quick, and then we're going to wrap. Yep.
Just say, technology is obviously one of the paradoxes of modern life. It connects us all across the world, and yet studies, I think, show that people feel more and more isolated. So I think technology can be healthy, but I actually don't think there's enough healthy social norms around how to use it, or permissions in business about what is acceptable in a healthy way. I've been thinking actually a lot about that because I get 200 emails a day at least, and I literally can't process them. When you send me an email, it's off your desk and it's on mine, right? And you think, well, why hasn't he answered you? How do we manage that in a way that's mindful and conscious? I don't have the answer, but it's a serious problem. It's a serious health problem, I actually think. And I wish the way that social norms and mores have evolved on certain issues, like diversity, like the things, how we treat people and things like that. I wish we could get to that place with technology, because it's only going to get worse. And I'm not a computer, and we're not all computers, right? We can't continue to add new silicon chips to get faster. At least I can.
I must confess, I want to add one real quickie while I hand this over. Is to me, that's evolution. If we were always ready for the next thing, we wouldn't be going forward. So to me, technology keep coming fast, because then I get to choose, do I want to turn something off or not? It's helping me create my own level of self-awareness. So to me, bring it on. Sorry, so what's gone?
So this is the
You're
last
brave,
question.
Margaret, you're brave.
One of the tenets of conscious capitalism is feeling safe and warm in your job. For people to come out of their shell and participate in it, they have to feel safe in that environment. And in a turbulent world, where here in the Bay Area, there's lots of turnover, where there's lots of competition, people inherently have a lot of insecurity about their position. So as a benefit, since that's our focus here, we talked about retention, keeping people from leaving, but how do you make people feel safe and welcome into this and encourage them to open up?
Safe in order to feel like they want to stay in that place.
Yeah, and open up and participate in this.
I think, as I said a little earlier, you have to give people permission and really prove to them that there's nothing negative that happens, and I think that leadership comes from the top. Our managing partner has, and I'm going to speak to the associates now, because you're a partner, it's a completely different power dynamic, right? But for our young associates who come in and they, we need to tell them and then we need to show them that we actually are interested in their opinion, and it's okay if they say things, if they express themselves in a way that's constructive and helpful, obviously. It shows that they are interested in building our business, but also shows that they have personal contributions to make. I think that's leadership. To me, that's about leadership, and it's also about when there's bad actors, and sometimes there are, because we're all human beings, you really have to communicate effectively with those bad actors, even if they bring a lot of dollars for the company. You just have to do it.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the things that we thought we would do, and that there's many, many more conversations here, right, as you can hear. So I'm a little like, and I'm also in moderator role and watching the time, and we have some other interesting adventures for you. So what we thought we would do is actually take a few moments to go through a couple of practices with you, and Mark will be leading us through those, so that you really also get a felt sense and an experience if you haven't had one. And if you have, you'll still enjoy it. Or not, right?
The enjoyment is optional.
That's right, enjoyment is optional. That's right, either way. And then after that, we will be transitioning into discussions in small groups. Okay, and in that instance, I'll just set it up now because we'll go right into it. We're going to be talking, each of the speakers will be sitting at a table, and then a couple of our board members will also be sitting at a table. And the idea with those discussions will be around what were some of the insights that you had from the conversation, and what does that spark for you in terms of taking action? Because what we're really committed to here is bringing what's in this room out to the world, right? And really bringing this and sharing it. So we'll be curious to hear from you. You guys can chat at your tables, and then we'll do a quick share back before we wrap up the evening. But as a way to do that, we figured we would take some time to do a practice as a transition point for you. Okay? So.
Great. So I thought we'd do just a couple minutes of mindfulness meditation and then a couple minutes of some mindful listening. So start by putting things away and sit in your chair. Not too comfortably this time of night. I don't want you to get too comfortable. Feel free to close your eyes or leave your eyes open. Keep eyes open this time of night might be more recommended, whatever is better. If you keep open, just gaze down without focusing on anything. So just start by consciously choosing a way to sit in the chair. Notice how you place your hands, how you place your feet, maybe open up your shoulders, and just bring awareness to the body. What is it like? What is it like right now, sitting in this chair? Just being curious. And gently noticing that breathing is happening without trying to change your breathing or control your breathing, just noticing breathing. Can you bring a sense of curiosity, kind of childlike curiosity to the breath and to the body? Again, just asking yourself, what is it like to be sitting here right now? What is it like to be alive? To be here? Can you make the transition from listening to others to just listening to yourself? Just checking in with the body, with the breath, with your thinking mind. Just notice, be curious, is your mind racing or calm? Just noticing and seeing if it's possible to stay with the breath, stay with the body. And noticing any feelings that might be arising or judgments, whatever's happening. Just bringing your attention to whatever is happening right now in this mind, body. And perhaps even checking in with your own heart, your deepest feelings and aspirations, whatever that means to you, checking in with your heart. And just noticing, not trying to change anything. And then gently bringing your attention back to the breath. Do you notice that you're breathing in, breathing out, without you having to do anything? And let's just sit quietly together for 30 seconds. Great, and let's gently open eyes or bring attention to being back here with each other. And I'd like to ask you to just find a person, turn to a person next to you. If there isn't someone right next to you, feel free to stand up and find someone, but without talking, just find a person, and I'll give you some instructions. Okay, everyone have someone? If you don't, raise your hand if you don't have someone and you can find each other. Someone right there needs... Yeah, someone. Are you still need a person? Yes, don't be shy. Find each other. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Okay, so one person is going to speak. How about the person with the shortest hair is going to go first? You can tell I have a bias. Okay, all right. Okay, so here, one person is going to speak. The other person, I'm going to do this for a very short time. It's going to be like 2 minutes. The other person is just going to listen, without interrupting, without asking questions, just listening. Take the whole time. If you run out of something to say, just sit there uncomfortably or comfortably. So the person speaking, how was the meditation, and or what are you feeling right now? Okay, how was the meditation, and what are you feeling right now? I'll ring a bell and we'll switch. So, short-haired person, go ahead, you can do this. All right. So the first person should finish. Let's just all just take a breath. Take a breath. Relax. And then the second person, you've got 2 minutes. So the second person, how is the sitting? What are you feeling right now? Go ahead. All right, so let's all come on back. When we finish, and thank your partner, and let's come on back.
Okay, so thank you everybody, and now what we're going to do is you don't need to move, you can stay at your tables, but we're going to have the speakers, each of the panelists go out to a table, and then we're also going to have a couple of our board members facilitate the conversation. So the 2 things are insight and action, okay? So, and we'll have about 10 minutes for the conversation, okay? So they're going to go just out, they've been assigned tables.
We got everybody covered. So Margaret's going to come out. Who did that? Oh, I love it. Go. Keep that up. I know sorry about
it's a chance to.
So I think the key is there's a dichotomy between business performance and conscious conscience. I really think there's a spectrum, and I think if anyone has seen quantum activist, the guy who basically wrote the book on quantum mechanics, his whole breadth of work was on the quantum paradox. And what he came down to was do, be, do. You have to be to have that place of creation, to allow it to be, and then you have to actually do something in order to bring that into manifestation. And I think that's an extremely powerful thing for people to realize. I'm going to manifest $1 million. You might need to pick up the phone, right? You might need to write a letter. You might need to have a conversation. I think that there is a place for mindfulness and consciousness in business tremendously, because I think it allows us to now working with a group of
and so it's really interesting to see again the bottom line, which I think I heard everybody is still very I mean, it's more unconscious capitalism, 10 years plus. I think those companies outperform the other companies like short of 10 years, so it does take a longer view in some deals. And I think the most interesting thing I heard is that the important thing, new insight that realized as a conscious company as a supplier with vendors, you can also leverage up and down the food chain other people you work with, or ask them where they are. As in their conscious performance, how diverse is their workplace, how are they use of sustainability.
Yeah, I think
that's very interesting to me. And just how do you measure how mindful someone is from the moment they walk in? This is a powerful matter when they walk out. How do you measure that? Buying closer, especially with some of these. I just got back from a medical technology summit last quarter, and they were getting me, lots of measurement things you can do. Measuring, I think brain scanners just cost $25,000 you can buy for $300, and really measure your brainwave activity in certain areas throughout the day that might then alert you to your wrist device saying, hey, your brainwave activity in this part of the brain, which normally shows how present you are, has just gone off the chart in the other direction, or the heart rate just hit past the range and says you're probably not very present or in a right.
So you're right. Change consciousness that was coming on all about the cause of
I went to a lecture by a monk he's a Frenchman who's lived for 55 in Tibet, and it was about altruism. And he talked to us for 2 hours about altruism and the benefits and how the world, that is the answer to sustainability.
They've raised $50 million, and then
at the end, one person asked,
bringing all of these consumer health applications
here in
benefits
this world,
to Fortune 1000.
and nobody is interested.
So I think it's phenomenal, and they're gamifying because most people don't know that 70% of all companies in the U.S. are self-insured. So you might, Blue Cross might be there's benefits, but ultimately who's going to pay?
Also, clients and suppliers that are related to,
the employer has more motivation. All of
so
it
the main question is how
than the government, than our spouses, than our friends, than any other peer group.
Like you said, you have to be patient and persistent and all of that, but in the kind of
corporations are starting to get
it's also about, I mean, when you mentioned being a B corporation, I think that's maybe that's 2 years. Because if you are a corporation that to really, the viral is to maximize profit, we're never gonna get, kind of never practices. So maybe
But I think you don't have to get certified to incorporate mindfulness practices. You could use various assessment tools, like the Quarter Assessment Tool, which is free. And many companies have used those sorts of assessment tools to understand what the issues are and create a better culture. And there are lots of other tools too, right? Which are take the first step and start examining what's going on internally.
Curiosity on how much time are they utilizing their 5 core strengths. And if they have the highest, they can't publicly share their employee satisfaction rate. But Facebook's hired 4,000 people a year. They can't afford, once they find somebody good, they need to keep them. And so they screen them actually monthly, and if there's somebody they like who's not using what their natural, this is my superpower, most of the time, they will sit down and figure out, where do I put you in the Facebook family so that you're utilizing your stuff. LinkedIn does something very simple. Wisdom 2.0, 2,000 people, it always sells out, and it's very diverse and it's extraordinary.
Are you getting the message? But it's also about what kind of thoughts are you thinking?
And LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google are all huge participants. Like you could literally hear their top HR people like Karen May and
that I know I can address with my clients, and often it's kind of that stealthy transformation where you work in the mindfulness.
You really hear the biggest companies that are employing consciousness on a massive scale, how they're actually doing it, and what are they doing?
People are hungry for mindfulness, and so it's work that I'm doing, and I'm excited to see that it doesn't. It's been
I was going to add, to your point, the by me or from to me thing is, for big institutions, we don't run capitalism, that's glacial. So you kind of have to create it around you, to your point where people don't buy into it, and I've run into a lot of companies around that, and some just aren't going to be conscious capitalist companies, they're just not, because it doesn't come from leadership. But you can create it. Sorry.
Well, there's 5 strength 5 if you like. It's like focus on the whole
Have you taken it too far?
No, I get that. The point where it goes, you have to create it around you if it's not there, is what I was really driving towards. You choose to interact with people. Good lead is when you come with somebody, start asking how they feel. Not how you doing today. How do you feel? It's a great lead-in question, and they come off their burden, and they're honest in the conversation, and productive, but it creates that connection.
That's a great point.
It's really important.
Mine is to make sure we get the material out.
If people don't want to be mindful,
And then also,
reducing the risk in organization by having better employees who are happier, where you don't have to have higher recruiting costs, where you put out a less toxic product, right? You create a better service. I mean, talking conservative as opposed to progressive language, it's the same thing. Because if you're doing mindfulness in that way, you are creating a lot of risk. Why people can't hear that, which is something and people shut down when you talk certain ways.
And more about it from a person who can be really talented or
There's always a way around it.
Because we play such a huge premium on intellect, and the intellect can only follow. And I think that's really true. And I think that, if you want to challenge it really is about sort of understanding your own essence and your own personal gift to the world and being fully an integrated person in terms of
how you show up in the world and at work. The most successful people are oftentimes the most authentic people. People respond to their career. So if you can help create a culture where everybody can bring out their own authenticity and their own gifts, they're much more likely to make a positive contribution.
It's like it's not necessarily what you do, it's sort of what, it's not necessarily what you do, it's what you embody, right? It's sort of what you,
right. And remembering that you're four parts, there's an intellect, but there's also there's a mission of what you do. So it's,
I mean, for a culture like yours, which has this crazy, you know, deadline-oriented life, not to throw your force out to the ocean.
The board can use their collective intelligence to
No, but all joking aside, this is just so really, I just stepped into doing more as it. However, if you guys have ideas,
integrated practice, right?
And that's, sort of makes that music technology that people can relate to, that's maybe not so knowledge.
When you're getting,
Exactly, all right.
you know,
So we like.
and when you're getting like, it's going to be inactive, versus, you know, that, because I mean, that would pretty much shift, you know, I don't know, play to
About 1 minute.
because I
1 minute?
get like that, it's like,
Miss Margaret?
is it
1 minute? Yep.
Are we about to do 1 minute?
I just like that. All right, 1 1.5.
I think so, I just get that feeling, but then
Business is sort of hard to find even businesses to have.
I just got
or reflections
so next thing you keep your stories, just leave it to them. Then you can leave it. But we'll be done in about 7 minutes. Okay? Yeah. I only got the scoop now, otherwise I wouldn't put it on. We would put it on. Yeah, exactly. We'll send it out.
Okay, so we're gonna start getting back together.
I can't remember the
It's hard, there's one age after.
Did you just round this up?
Okay, so we're gonna start gathering back up. So just completing. And everybody I am mindful of and aware of the garage. I know closes at 8. What we found out, the secret I found out tonight is, because we will be having many of the events here, is in the garage you can do a self-pay auction after 4:30 for $10 and keep your keys. And then you can stay after 8. And then you can dance on the roof. No, I'm just kidding. So that's for the future, okay? And it's okay if I told you. I asked them that I could tell you. Is that okay, Jonathan?
Actually, I didn't even know that. Thank you.
You gotta stick around with me, you'll get hooked up. Okay, so I just got back from New Zealand, so I literally went in the garage on the wrong side. And I was like, woo, other side of the road. Not a good thing, but that's a different story. Okay. All right, so what I'd love to do is just collectively, I'd love to hear maybe 1 or 2 insights or questions that emerge, just as a way to close this circle. And then we have one more closing piece, and then there'll be a tiny bit of networking after if you want to stick around. So a couple of insights. And just like little short ones that are like just wow, just like so yummy, like a truffle, you know, like yeah. So what insights? Yes, insight truffle. Go.
That it's super encouraging to be in a room and a group of people like this, because the day-to-day can be a grind. Even when we're in the middle of our passion, it can be a grind. So to be able to collectively sit down and breathe together and then go out and do something like that is super cool. So thank you, everybody.
What else? Another insight. Yes, sir.
I just think it's absolutely refreshing to be in a group of people that can bring this type of topic and this type of consciousness to businesses, and how you can talk about integrating it and how it's becoming a part of the conversation in normal business. And I just think that's absolutely remarkable. You guys are amazing, truly.
Thank you. Okay, one more. We're gonna put up a slide for you, but one more, yes.
I feel like for me, seeing this group come together and having this topic with these amazing panelists that spoke with us today was so inspiring, and I feel like having a group like this come together and seeing the intentions moving forward in the business world and seeing this become a more mainstream topic, I feel like the inspiration that comes out of something like this and seeing how it aligns with the work that I'm particularly doing makes me feel really excited about moving forward and embracing all of those opportunities. And I feel like I need about 20 more of me and 16 more hours in the day right now. But
we'll
it's
teach
really
you how to
inspiring.
do that next time.
Great. I'll be here.
That's what signs me up. I'll go to that as well. Beautiful. Yeah. And just as a way to wrap us up is just really sitting in that sweetness or in that question or just right here, right now, right? There is nothing else really, but we forget. So just really enjoying that and savoring it, and just notice where you go as you start to, oh, it's starting to wrap up. Did you already leave? Or are you still here? Right? So allowing yourself to stay right here. There's no other place to be for another minute or two. Yeah. All right. And so what I'd ask for each of you is just taking a moment and asking, what is my commitment, my personal commitment out of tonight? What will I do different? What will I share with someone? Right? What will I maybe create in my organization? What will I create in my heart? Right? What is my personal commitment out of tonight? And just taking a moment to take a breath into that, connecting into that. And just taking a moment also to honor yourself for being here and making the time, the space to be able to be here and to share with others. And so just as a way of closing, I'd like to turn it over to Ben, who's on our board. And we wanted to do a couple things. It's just mention we have some upcoming events there if you want to pencil them in. And we're looking for folks to be able to offer ideas, suggestions. You might have speakers that would be amazing for some of these topics. So please keep it after if you've got ideas. We also have the 27th of October coming up as well. Yeah, 27th of October. Okay. So, you want to go down? This is my very first event doing this, so I'm sorry. I'm still learning.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Or will? Okay. So this is an interesting moment to be here during this event around mindfulness, because mindfulness, I think all of you have either know this or have gotten this, that mindfulness really covers the whole range of experience, right? It's not just about being happy, feeling good, not just about feeling bad and struggling. It's about everything on the whole spectrum. Often conflicting emotions and feelings just happening all at once. And this has been a kind of interesting week because, as some of you may have seen, an email from us a couple weeks ago for our friend and colleague Wouter Van Leer, who passed away unexpectedly about 2 weeks ago, the Labor Day weekend. And we were all pretty shocked, to say the least, because news like that never comes. You're never really prepared for it, even if you're prepared for it. But we stopped and we thought about it, and we kind of really all got present to our experience around that, and realized that yes, we're going to feel what we're going to feel, and we're going to experience what we're experiencing, and we're going to grieve how we're going to grieve. But not the first, but probably the most important and ongoing, legacy aspect of that, if you will, is the celebration part of it, which we really wanted to underscore just for like a minute or so here tonight with all of you in honor of Wouter, because he was He was a person who was instrumental in, I guess, the beginning of conscious capitalism, especially on the marketing side, Conscious Capitalism Bay Area. He was our marketing committee, so we need a new marketing committee. It's interesting that I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience, but you hear of someone who passes away and they'll say, oh, this person was in the prime of his life and doing good things in the world and really affecting people positively and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people's first answer is, oh, that's what a shame, what a waste. And the way we thought about it was, wow, what a great way to go out, to really be at the top of your game. And he really was at the top of the game and of his game and impacted all of us so dramatically. Of course, this is all bittersweet. As I say all of this, and I'm mindful of the conflicting emotions that are inside my body right now. But yeah, just really wanted to really honor the memory, like the living memory of our friend Wouter, who we will miss dearly. And we wouldn't be who we are without him. And I guess just the last thing that I wanted to say about that is, everyone in here, I imagine, has seen a rainbow at least once in their lives. Yes. I don't think any of us ever sees a rainbow and then when it goes away, we're like, oh, that rainbow's gone. How am I going to go further? No, it's we enjoy rainbows so much because they're transient and they're glorious and they're amazing and they light up our lives. So that's how I feel like when I think of Wouter. He is a rainbow and for all of us. So I'm going to leave you all with that thought. And thank you very much for being here. And before we break out into the networking, sorry, pregnant pause. Yes, so I just wanted to say very quickly thank you to our most excellent group of expert panelists. Jonathan and your person. Okay, and
Jonathan has.
I don't know, do you have?
You have one, Jonathan?
What? I don't have.
We were giving you homework. Is that like a thank you gift?
You gotta read it.
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's it. Thank you all very, very much. Keep in mind October 27th for our next event, which is Conscious Philanthropy. Should be super cool. You'll see emails from me literally about that very, very soon, because I'm the marketing guy for Conscious Capitalism. And please, network, enjoy, find ways to partner up and do more good things in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.